HOA board member just demanded I give her free gas from my car, and when I refused, she called the police and tried to get me arrested for theft. You won't believe what the cops said when they arrived. This Karen messed with the wrong neighbor. And what happened next is absolutely insane. Watch until the end to see how this entitled HOA nightmare finally got what she deserved. Drop a like and subscribe to Neighbor Wars HQ for more crazy neighbor drama. Hey everyone, welcome back to Neighbor Wars HQ. If you're new here, this channel is about the most insane, unbelievable, and downright crazy neighbor in HOA stories you've ever heard. Today's story is absolutely wild, and I promise you're going to want to stick around until the very end, because the way this Karen finally gets put in her place is absolutely satisfying. Before we dive in, make sure you smash that subscribe button and hit the notification bell so you never miss another crazy neighbor story. Drop a like if you're already Team Anticorinne. Let me know in the comments if you've ever dealt with an entitled HOA board member. Trust me, this story is going to make your blood boil, but the ending, chef's kiss, absolutely perfect. All right, let's get into it. So this story takes place in a suburban neighborhood with one of those HOAs that thinks they run a mini dictatorship instead of, just maintaining property values. Our main character, let's call him Dave, had been living in this neighborhood peacefully for about 3 years. He followed the rules, paid his HOA fees on time, kept his lawn pristine, and basically minded his own business. But there was one person on the HOA board who was about to make Dave's life a living nightmare. Name was Patricia, but everyone in the neighborhood secretly called her Patricia the Predator because she was always looking for violations, always complaining, and always acting like she personally owned the entire subdivision. She genuinely seemed to have an agenda to make life as difficult as possible for other people in this suburban utopia. Which, it's basically a very boring suburban neighborhood with cookie-cutter houses and lawns that all look exactly the same, but hey, whatever, right? Anyway, so one day Patricia's attention lands on a car parked in a spot on the other side of the HOA-controlled neighborhood. She promptly calls up the cops and tells them she thinks this car belongs to someone in this neighborhood and that it hasn't got a parking permit attached to it. She gives them all this information and expects them to do her bidding, which they do. Okay, but this is where this basically dire grade story starts to get actually interesting. Patricia was in her late 50s, drove a brand new luxury SUV. She'd inexplicably bought on her retirement savings, sported this signature Karen haircut, you know exactly what I'm talking about. She wore sparkly sunglasses in cloudy weather, toted a designer handbag with her everywhere she went, and had this nose-turning-up look in her eyes, as if she smelled something putrid and smelled it in every other person she laid eyes on. As far as Patricia went, Dave had successfully avoided her for nearly 3 years now. Okay, sure. She'd written him a passive-aggressive letter scolding him for leaving his trash cans out an extra hour before they were collected from the street, or for using Christmas lights of the wrong color white, but this was small potatoes. What you did not do if you lived in this HOA, you learn this fast. Keep a low profile. Follow all these ridiculous rules, and under no circumstances risk a confrontation with your neighbors, or worse, HOA rep. But all this was soon, very soon, about to go completely in a manner so absurd you'll not believe your eyes. It was Tuesday afternoon, and Dave had just fueled up his truck at a local gas station when this very same luxury SUV pulled up. Right behind him? No. Oh no. The time it really was Patricia. The very last thing in the world Dave thought to do was to peel out and make a swift exit before this confrontation got underway, but it was much too late. This very same luxury SUV parked right behind his own rig, boxing him in. Patricia stepped out of her vehicle with this smug look plastered all over her face, sauntering over to his side of his truck as if she were some sort of gift-bearing princess. "Now roll this sucker down," she demanded. "Yeah, Patricia. Actually, I'm in a bit of a hurry if you need this gas pump." But before he got another word out, Patricia shut him right up. "Actually, Dave, I need a favor." Red flag no. 1. Never, under any circumstances, did favors come into a demand from a sociopath such as our Patricia. "What's up?" Naturally. Patricia pointed to Dave's full gas tank and said matter-of-factly, "Can you please siphon some of your gas into my tank?" I'm running low, and I don't have time to get in line at the pump. Like he hadn't heard her wrong, she actually thought. He would take her up on this request. Patricia, Dave said slowly, I don't have a way to siphon gas. Besides, that's my gas. I just paid $80,000 attitude or drive-through price for it. Patricia immediately set her face in a disapproving scowl. Dave, I am on the HOA board. Can't you do this small favor for me in light of all the work I do for this community? It's just a tank full of gas. I have a large tank. The gall. Patricia, I'm not going to give you my gas, Dave said, in a very patient voice for a man in shock. Why don't you go fill up your gas tank over there? He pointed to where 2 other cars were waiting in line, and to fill it up yourself. That line is always a problem, she pointed out with a scowl at 2 waiting cars. And I am a busy woman, Dave. I have HOA work to see to tonight. Can you please do this small thing for me? No, Dave said strongly. Now will you please move your car so I can leave? Oh boy. Little did you know, you had no idea how entitled Patricia really was. Patricia's face turned bright red with rage. Like pure vinegar-filled tomato sauce red, she stabbed her finger in Dave's face through the car window. You and Ivy Holyrood, aren't you? Let me make one thing very, very clear for you. None of us direct adults, DOSTARD ester 282321 1 liter dialp, 530 tones 670. Afghanistan, name for Ishans El Herdroff, F patient GY 349045. Ikpine Gare, SLCORD, 66 Road England Permelrig. Hall TS written SH Preamble Core Relat Sopel 682 HM Spec Dispro, Adopt Gar. Oh, shut up, Dave interjected in shock and helplessness. Patricia, listen, I don't care if you're the President of the United States. I'm not going to give you gas. Move your car now. Patricia's eyes went wide. She wasn't used to people pushing back at her. This is theft. You're stealing from the community? How am I stealing? Dave innocently asked. This is my gas. I paid for it with my money. Your money comes from living in OUR neighborhood. Patricia screamed, and yes, her logic went 0 for 1. Everything you have is because of the property values we maintain. That means community resources must be shared. At this point, other people in line at the gas station were staring in interest. A man in line at the next pump had his jaw hanging wide open in shock. A woman getting coffee inside the convenience store walked to the front of the SHL store to see what all the fuss was about. Patricia, for goodness sake, move your car or I'm going to call whom? Patricia cut in with this wicked smile plastered on her face. Actually, I'm going to call the police. You're failing to assist a HOA board member, which is an affront to neighborhood assistance laws. And I'm going to report you for aggressive conduct and attempted assault. Attempted assault? I'm sitting in my car. Your tone is assaultive? Patricia yelled. You're making a hostile environment. And then, and this where it gets even better, Patricia actually whipped out her phone and hit 911. Hello, 911? She sweetly chirped. Yes, I need police assistance at the Shell gas station on Meadowbrook Drive. A man in this station is failing to assist me in getting gas for my car, and he's being very aggressive towards me. Failing to assist you? Failing to assist you in getting gas? Failing to assist you in getting gas. Then she went into this sweet, plaintive voice. Oh, this wasn't going well for Patricia. I am in my truck. I am literally sitting here. Patricia gave him a harsh look before turning her attention back to her performance. Of course he's yelling at me right now. I am an HOA board member, and I am very scared. He is suffering from road rage and is going to hit me with his truck because he hasn't given me gas. The 911 operator must have asked follow-up questions because Patricia began with this ridiculous explanation of how she had polity. Dave if she might have just a cup or two since she'd run out of gas and she'd end up stranded. But Dave burst into a fit of rage, screaming profanities at her, threatening to end her life. She wasn't lying, not a word. Dave had his phone recording every word. A man from the next gas up walked up to Dave's car and leaned in quietly. Sir, I saw this whole thing go down. That woman is lying through her teeth. I'll stick around if the cops come by. Thank you, Dave gratefully thanked him. This is unbelievable. You don't understand, Mr. Older Guy explained with a shake of his head. These people think they are above all rules, and if they don't get what they want, they'll go to the authorities for an anvil to come crashing down on other people's heads. That's disgusting. Patricia finished her phone call and turned to Dave, this smug grin plastered on her face. The police are on their way. Better be ready to be smartly stunned for theft and assault. For stealing. What? Gasped Patricia, coolly explained. You refuse to share community resources in an emergency. It's theft of possible assistance. A crime. You can't make this up, Dave thought for a solid 99%. But more than this, he noted in amazement, she seemed entirely serious. 10 minutes went by before a police car pulled into this gas station. 2 officers emerged from the law enforcement vehicle. An elderly male officer with a seen-to-everything look in his eyes, and a younger female officer scribbling furiously in a notebook. Patricia ran up to them. Officers, thank goodness. You're here. That man in the truck over there refused to give me gas when I asked him, and now he's going to run me over. The elderly officer raised a staying hand. Ma'am, please. Let's take this one step at a time. Can you tell me exactly what happened? Patricia dived into her mendacious story once more, complete with dramatic accompaniment in her hands and tears in her voice. Well, I was practically on an empty tank, officer, she explained, and I politely asked assistance from a fellow community member. But this man got angry with me and verbally assaulted me. The officer nodded thoughtfully, making a slow walk towards Dave's truck. Sir, can you please tell me your side of this? Officer, began Dave, taking a deep breath. This man stopped for gas, pumped gas into his own tank with money from his own pocket. As he left, blocking in a car in this manner, Patricia glared at her car. Is this woman Patricia? And demanded I siphon gas into her tank because she didn't want to wait in line. I refused because, you see, it's my gas, $83 worth. I think you'll find this whole false charge inexcusable, officer. Well, did she want you to give her your gas? Yes. This gas you'd paid for. Yes, sir. $83 worth. The officer studied both of them, and you asked him for your gas. No, officer, Patricia began to explain smartly. I requesting community assistance, which he is obligated to provide under HOA rules. But Officer, Patricia went on, her face reddening. This man lives in my neighborhood. That, replied the officer matter-of-factly, is not important. And he's not obligated to give you your gas because it's your gas. It's not an obligation for either of you to make it an obligation.
Oh.
So you're saying he can just refuse to help? A woman in need? What about community values? What about being a good neighbor? A younger police officer chimed in. Ma'am, can I see your gas gauge, please? Patricia hesitated. Why, you said you were almost empty. I'd like to confirm that. Oh no. Patricia's confident demeanor began to waver. She reluctantly went back to her SUV, with the officers in tow. When she turned on her engine, her gas gauge indicated she had 3/4 tanks full. The expression on the senior officer's face turned cold in an instant. Ma'am, you have a 3/4 tank of gas in your car. Well, I wanted to. Fill up completely, Patricia protested. You told 911 you were running on empty and were afraid of being stranded, said the officer, thumbing through his notepad. That's a false report. You called 911 and lied about an emergency situation. Patricia's eyes grew wide. Now hold up just a minute, ma'am. Did you or did you not tell the 911 operator you were afraid you'd get stranded because you were out of gas? WL, yes, but I meant, in a short while, and did you tell the 911 operator that this man threatened you with his car? Patricia's face turned red with anxiety. It was being aggressive. A man from the other pump stepped up. Officer, I saw this whole exchange go down. That Tong man never yelled once until she started yelling. She cut him off in her spot in. Lion asked him for his gas money, and when he refused her, she called in a false 911 report. I'd be happy to make a statement. Thank you, sir. He took down the man's information. The other officer turned to Patricia. Ma'am, you were saying you're on an HOA board, yes? Patricia quickly volunteered, perhaps hoping this would work in her favor. I am a member of the Meadowbrook Estates HOA. This man is a resident in our community, and he owes a... Ma'am, your HOA status gives you no right to make demands on another person's property, interrupted the officer. What you have just perpetrated is considered a false police report, which is a crime. Patricia's face turned red, but it quickly turned white. You can't arrest me. I'm a victim here. You are not a victim, ma'am, stated the officer. Have attempted to manipulate law enforcement into harassing a man for not complying with your unreasonable demand. Dave remained in his truck, observing all this with shock and a sense of satisfaction that Patricia got called out for making a false police report. Officers, she is also parked in front of my car, added Dave. I have been stuck in this spot for nearly 30 minutes. The officer nodded. Ma'am, you need to move your car right now so this man can leave. You will be getting a citation for a false police report. A citation? Patricia screeched in outrage. You have no idea how much money I pay in taxes? My husband is a lawyer. I will have your badge revoked for this. The younger officer sighed. Ma'am, making threats on a police officer is not very smart either. Move your car now, or you'll have an obstruction charge added. Patricia went off the deep end. Every moment of her life, as a Karen flashed before her eyes. She may have pulled this same trick a dozen times before, using her HOA membership, making threats, involving officers, and people simply caved since it wasn't worth the trouble. But this time, with witnesses, with officers recorded, the cell phone camera taking in every detail. This is an abuse of power, shouted Patricia. You're targeting me because I am a woman? Because I am a HOA board member? The senior officer had had enough of her ramblings. Ma'am, the only abuse of power present in this situation is you using emergency powers to resolve a personal matter. Move your car now, or you'll be arrested for obstruction of justice. Patricia looked around, perhaps for someone to side with. Her, but every single other person in the gas station was just staring at her in a combination of shock and collective embarrassment. Eventually, with tears of outrage streaming down her face, Patricia stormed back to her SUV, climbed inside, and slammed her car door shut so hard that Dave was surprised the window didn't shatter. She put her car in reverse, nearly hitting a gas pump, before peeling out of the gas station parking lot with an angry screech of tires and an unintelligible shout. The officer turned to walk back to Dave. Sorry for the inconvenience, sir. However, you're free to go. Here's your incident report, Hash, in case she tries anything else. Thanks, officer, Dave explained, taking in everything just happening. A friendly old man walked up and shook hands with Dave. Good for you for taking a stand, son. Folks like her need to realize not everyone will put up with her nonsense. They shook hands, and the officer left. Then, with a dazed look on his face, Dave got into his car and drove home. He'd just wasted half an hour of his life stuck in a gas station, witnessed a full-blown Karen freakout, and had a woman try to steal gas from him before getting cited by police. Things were not exactly going in a good way for this day, but this wasn't over yet. No way. Oh no, it got better. Later this evening, an email arrived from HOA, and it came from Patricia's email address with a subject line reading, Violation. Notice failure to comply with board member request. Poor Dave couldn't believe it. Even with all that transpired, Patricia was still using her HOA powers against him. Here were violations she laid out with a $500 charge for each and a theoretical total bill of $2,000. Failure to assist. HOA board member in emergency situation, aggressive behavior towards HOA representative, damage to HOA reputation by involving police in emergency situation, creating a public disturbance which reflects negatively upon our community. Dave immediately sent the email to the police officer who had given him the incident report, and then he did something amazing. He put the entire incident, including his video, on the neighborhood's Facebook page with this caption, Is this really how our HOA board represents us? In an HOUR, this share had over 200 reactions and 80 comments. The thing is, folks, Dave wasn't just a victim of Patricia's wrath. No way. Now, people in the neighborhood began sharing their Patricia stories. She'll fine me $300 because my mailbox wasn't the right shade of black. I had to give her paint codes to prove it was the right color, she reported my teen for skateboarding. On the sidewalk, because it's gang activity, She threatened to foreclose on me because my grass is 3.1 inches tall when it's supposed to be 3. She used a ruler. She called animal control on my elderly cat for loitering on my front porch. She threatened to shut off our electricity because our outdoor light wasn't on for exactly 12 hours a night. She timed it with a timer. They just kept coming. Patricia had bullied all these people into being afraid of her, and now they all had a chance to speak up. Several people noted they'd left the HOA board because Patricia made it so unpleasant. Some stated they'd thought of moving out of the neighborhood to get away from her constant hounding. And then this comment popped up from another HOA board member, a woman named Jennifer, who apparently had been trying to get rid of Patricia for years. I have over 50 incidents of complaints against Patricia's behavior, including using her HOA powers for harassment of residents, personal gain, and expenditure of HOA money. The problem is, our HOA president is her friend, so nothing ever gets accomplished. But this threatened a homeowner with fake HOA tickets over a personal disagreement? THIS is our ammunition. An emergency HOA meeting will be called this weekend, this Saturday. Dave went to an HOA meeting which would go down in local history as the most epic in a neighborhood called Meadowbrook Estates. The room in the community center was standing. Room only. Normally, these HOA meetings drew 10 people. This one had more than 100 homeowners packed into every available space. Some people were literally waiting in the doorway to hear. Patricia sat at a board table with her arms crossed, clearly, wishing she were absolutely anywhere else. The HOA president, a man named Greg, who'd been enabler for years in matters of Patricia's behavior, looked mortified. Jennifer stood up first. We need an immediate vote to remove Patricia from the HOA board for abuse of authority, harassment of homeowners, false reports of violations, and bringing disrepute to our community. Patricia leapt to her feet. No way you can remove me. I'm the only one in this whole neighborhood who actually enforces rules. Without me, this whole place would go to hell. You mean without you, people can live in peace? A voice called out from among the onlookers. The room shook with laughter and applause. Greg vainly attempted to regain order. All right, settle down. You all need to be civil? Civil? Oh, a woman in the front row interrupted. Patricia tried to have my kid arrested for playing too loudly in a basketball game, and this was at 2 o'clock on a Saturday. More people began to shout out their complaints. Things were getting completely out of hand, and Patricia's face was turning redder and redder with rage. Jennifer finally raised a staying hand. There is written record of all this, including a copy of the police report concerning Patricia's false police report and subsequent attempt to bully a homeowner in her official capacity over a personal grudge. That alone is grounds for removal. Greg looked defeated. He knew he wasn't going to be able to shield her anymore, not with this many people in this room thinking this way. All in favor of removing Patricia from her HOA position, Jennifer called out. It was unanimous. Every hand in the room went up. Greg hesitated, but finally relented with a sheepish grin plastered on his face. Patricia stood there, dumbfounded, taking in all those upraised hands. You can't do this to me. I have given years to this community. I have given up time. You have bullied and harassed every single resident in this community, Jennifer stated firmly. You have used your power unfairly, threatened homeowners, and used HOA resources for your personal grudges. You're finished, Patricia. For a moment, Patricia seemed to grasp she had no hold in this place. No intimidation would work. No screaming, crying, and playing the role of victim. She had overstepped at last, and this whole community had had enough of her. Patricia grabbed her designer handbag, pended her chair because she had to go out with a bang, and stormed out of the community center, yelling, "You'll all regret this." The room erupted into applause. People were cheering and high-fiving each other. They were celebrating the ousting of a dictator from their neighborhood. After she left, Jennifer immediately invalidated all Patricia's false tickets she had issued to Dave. The HOA organization issued an official apology to Dave and offered to cover all expenses incurred during this ordeal. They were going above and beyond because they were victorious. HOA rules were put in place because of this ordeal. No single HOA member would be allowed to make tickets without approval from at least 2 other HOA members. Violations had to include photographic proof and a citation of a covenant regulation. Residents were allowed to contest violations before all HOA members, not just with the member making the threat. HOA members were subject to removal based on a majority vote from homeowners. They basically prevented a Patricia problem in this neighborhood, so no other resident would go through this in the future. As for Patricia, Dave heard through the grapevine. She attempted wrongful termination against the HOA because they fired her from her HOA role. The problem: that's purely a voluntary position she took up in HOA's assistance. The lawsuit got tossed since you can't sue for wrongful termination. If you were never under a requirement to keep your role in HOA assistance in the first place, eventually, she and her husband put up their house for sale because they moved to another state. It's probably to find a new neighborhood too, you know? And Dave kept this citation, which Patricia got from the police, in a box in his garage, he explained, as a reminder of how important it is to stand up to bullies, no matter how much they think they can push people around. So there you have it, folks. The insane story of how an HOA Karen stole gas, called the cops on someone when they were denied, and ended up being kicked off the HOA board and cited for making a false police report. The moral of this story? Bullies will thrive if they know people will not stand up to them. Patricia had been acting this way for years because people were just afraid of her and tired of dealing with her nonsense. But as soon as someone stood up to her and people saw they were not alone, her whole world crumbled under her feet. Now, it's time to hear your stories. Have you had an insane HOA board member before? Have you had a police report called in on you because your neighbor thought you were being ridiculous? Leave your stories in the comments below because I am going to pick the craziest one and include it in next week's video. Oh, and if you enjoyed this insane HOA story, make sure to hit that subscribe button and the notification bell so you can keep getting these kinds of videos delivered straight to your front door. Put up content 3 times a week, and let's be real, because these HOAs, they just keep getting weirder and weirder. Hit that follow button if you think this HOA Karen got a taste of her own medicine. Share this with all your friends if you have an insane HOA association in your life. Thank you very much for watching Neighbor Wars HQ, and remember, you have to stand your ground, document everything, and never let a Karen win. Go out and spread this to all your friends because this is hands down the most insane HOA takedown I have ever heard, and I want it to become the most viewed when you all share this. See you in the next video.